So I was driving down one of the main streets in town, and I couldn't believe it. I saw dark Highland green Bullitt, and it looked like it was really nice. I could tell by the headlights that they weren't fogged over, that the car might be a low mileage car. So I was in my blue Bullitt, and I got my cousin in his black Bullitt to go, and we drove over and checked out the car. It was really fun to have all three colors of the 2001 Bullitt together. We had black, true blue, and dark Highland green. So we looked over the car and looked underneath it, and it was actually kind of dirty underneath. It was a really nice car, but it looked like it had either been driven through some deep water or maybe even had a little bit of flood water underneath it. Or maybe it lived down a dirt road and they drove it down a dirt road a lot. But despite how dirty the car was underneath, it still was really clean outside. And there was something really odd about the driver's side wheel that I still don't know the answer to today. And that's the brake caliper had the pony running backwards on it. These brake calipers are powder coated red from the factory, and the horse is laser etched into them. So unless this is a passenger side caliper on the driver's side, or if there was a mix-up at the factory and it was actually laser etched on the wrong side, which I find hard to believe, I have no idea how this could even be possible. And this would become even more rare when I found out how many miles were on the car. So I started looking on the exterior of the car, and I noticed that the tail light on the driver's side was going black behind the lens. That's the chrome is pitting because the chrome will get wet and the condensation will pit away at the chrome reflective part underneath if the tail light's broken. So I looked closely and noticed that there was a crack in the tail light and that the light was getting ruined, and that on the corner of the bumper there underneath the tail light there was spider webbing where the bumper had been hit into something. I noticed that the headlights were actually starting to peel on the plastic, and that on top of the trunk lid the paint was peeling on the clear coat in a couple spots, which is really weird because this car was garaged its whole life. I also noticed that underneath the GT badge on the passenger side fender there was a huge chunk of paint missing, like somebody had tried to take it off with a screwdriver and pry it underneath it. And there was a big chunk of paint missing on the driver's side quarter panel, a big scratch there. So the car looked really nice, but it had quite a bit of damage to it. So I came back the next day with my brother in our Cobras, and we went to check out the car, and we were very surprised to find out that the car only had 5,000 miles on it, 5,200 miles. So we talked to the salesman. Turned out we opened the hood, it was Bullitt number 110, and that it was on consignment from a lady who owned the car, and her husband had just passed away. He was the one who loved the car, but now she was willing to sell it on consignment. So we looked underneath the hood, and wow, it was nice. You can tell with these cars when they're really low mileage that the bolts still look brass. I remember looking at Mach 1s in the showroom and seeing the valve cover bolts look brass like that because they were so new. There were still lots of factory markings and tags, paper tags hanging everywhere, and the car looked like it was brand new. So I talked to the salesman, and he didn't know what the car was. He had read a little bit online, and he found one similar with 2,000 miles on it that they were asking $16,000 for. So he told the lady who owned it that it was worth $16,000. That's what they were going to try to get for it. The book value on it was only 10 or so, but he said go ahead, take it for a drive and see what we thought, and I'll tell you what, it was really, really nice. It was like a brand new car. The clutch was really smooth. It felt like we had just bought a brand new Bullitt. So we took it back to a place that was really important to us. This was the driveway where we saw the very first Bullitt Mustang in town. It was always parked just like this with the wheel slightly turned as we'd go by and see it every day. It really was like going back in time. So we talked it over, and my brother did a good job helping me not get too emotionally attached to the car. And as far as price was concerned, that being a collector car in this regard, it didn't have the original tires, it didn't have the original battery, it had the spiderweb paint on the back bumper, so if you were to repaint that back bumper, it wouldn't really match, it wouldn't be original paint to the car. So for a lot of reasons, it wouldn't be a collectible item anymore, and it'd be something that you would want to not drive because of the mileage and everything. So we decided that it would be better to buy one that was loved and maintained and collected, where somebody had all the paperwork and everything, where this was more of something that somebody bought because they thought it was cool. They bumped it into a couple things. They drove it once in a while. They kept the miles down on it, but that was about it. We had both talked about how the price they're asking is Terminator money in this case, so anybody would really buy a Terminator instead. But for those reasons, I was still interested in buying the car, but just not for the huge, highly inflated price that they were asking. So we went back and talked to them and said, look, it books for 10. It's got at least $1,000 worth of damage with the paint work and all the things that it needs. I'd be willing to do $9,000 cash out the door. And he said, yeah, I'm not even going to tell her you made that offer because I already told her the car was worth $16,500. He did tell me the only offer they've had on the car was $6,500, and I thought, I'll give you more than that. So the car sat for several months. I'd go back often to look at it and see if it was still there, and I enjoyed seeing it when it was around. I want to say it even sat for at least half a year on their lot, and then she just took it back. We stopped by and he said, yeah, she wasn't interested in selling it if she wasn't getting what I told her it was worth, so she was just going to keep it. So the car still might be around here somewhere, and it'd be nice to see if it pops up. But it was a beautiful car, and it was a privilege to drive it. It was really fun to drive a Bullitt that was basically brand new and see what it was like. The truth is, though, driving my blue Mach 1, which has 85,000 miles on it, the clutch feels the same. Everything's just as smooth. So I'd say my blue Mach 1 was just as nice of a car, and I'm really happy to have the cars I have, but this definitely would have been a great one to add to the collection if they would have budged on the price. Anyway, well, thanks for watching. I think this is a really cool experience. I loved going back to part of my childhood. The Bullitt Mustang is where it all started for me with the New Edge Mustangs. I used to see the V6 ones parked outside of the Ford dealer. I loved them a lot, but the Bullitt was the first Mustang I ever rode in, just like what you just saw in the driveway in this picture right here. And I'll be having the story about that car later. So thanks for watching.